start with that. So, all right. Does everyone see a building a climate resilient food system in Plymouth County?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So yes, this is the second Plymouth County Community Advisory Board meeting. It is part of the MVP project, who is one of the funders of the larger program project, which is building a climate resilient food system in Plymouth County. And within that project, we are doing this CARET assessment, which is the Community and Agriculture Resilience Audit Tool. And that is being facilitated by the Marion Institute. I am with the Marion Institute, and my our executive director, Liz Wiley, is here as well on the call. And what we'll be doing is we're going through 101 indicators from the CARET together as a community advisory board. And the community advisory board is essentially acting as a work group to look at each of these indicators. The first step is coming up with what we know about each of these indicators, and the next step will be doing sort of the confirmation of what comes up in these work groups. Then the third step is we'll be coming back and we'll be scoring each of the indicators from 0 to 3, which is part of the CARET system, and that will give us this baseline resiliency of the food system in Plymouth County. The last community advisory board meeting, which was in July, we had about 14 people, a good cross-section from different food system sectors and just sectors in general. And we got through the first 21 indicators, or sorry, the first 13 indicators. So we'll be picking up where we left off. Just quickly here, your project leads are Joanne from Old Colony Planning Council, Bill Napolitano from Old Colony Planning Council, Frank Baslers from Plymouth County. They're also funding the project. He's not actually here. He is on a much deserved vacation, so we won't see him this month. And then myself and Liz. And you will see other Marion Institute, some of our other colleagues in here on occasion. One of the things that we're going to ask everyone to do, in lieu of official introductions, only because we find that to get through the indicators that we need the full meeting time to get through the themes, is if you could change your Zoom screen name to your first and last name and the organization you are with, if there is an organization. So I'll actually do it myself because I see that my name is not. Does everyone know how to do that? I'm not sure if you're watching it. You go to the 3 buttons on your tile, your own tile, up in the right-hand corner next to mute. There's 3 buttons, and if you click on that and then go all the way down, it says rename. So renaming, first and last name, organization. And then if you can also put your name, organization, and if you fancy picking a role in the food system, putting that in the chat as well. And this is a graphic that came from the Marion Institute's 2021 food system assessment that gives us a good visual of the different parts and pieces and people that are part of a food system. So that's kind of our preparation. Project overview, again, is this building a resilient food system in Plymouth County, where we're looking to really strengthen the local food system. And the CARET assessment is a way for us to understand what the county has in terms of what's called more soft assets. There's something called a food or an asset map, which gives us ideas around some of the harder infrastructure, like distribution centers and food hubs and food pantries and restaurants. And then the CARET is looking at some of those softer ones that you don't always get at from just publicly available information. So the CARET has these 7 themes, and we'll be going through each theme. Each monthly meeting will be either finishing a theme that we didn't finish, or starting on a new theme. So This month, we will be looking at finishing up theme number 1, which is natural resource management, use, conservation, and preservation of ecosystems and farmland. And we may or may not get started into theme 2, which is community health and well-being. Just a quick overview of what the Community Advisory Board is. Again, the purpose is to work with us to identify and score the resources in Plymouth County related to each of the 101 CARET indicators. Who's on the Community Advisory Board? We really are hoping and looking to get a diverse cross-section of county and state stakeholders, local state stakeholders as possible. One of the things we want to let people know is that everyone's voice counts, and you do not need to be an expert. So please don't feel like if you maybe don't know answers to some of the indicators, just being here, listening, being a part of the conversation at the table is really valuable. So we want as many people as possible here. And then again, all we're asking is that when you know something about these indicators, let us know, share your knowledge, insights. And sometimes there are people who have a ton of information, and we'll make note and we'll probably come back to you and set up a call or, have a few extra questions in email. This is a quick look at what everyone who's interested in the Community Advisory Board. We had about 54 people interested, and this was that breakout of people by where they are in the food system. And then just a few guidelines. Mostly, again, the Be Human First part is about just sometimes in community work like this, we can be really opinionated. People have opinions, they might be differing opinions. We're just asking that people be respectful of all the opinions that are on the call and making sure that everyone has a chance to contribute. And again, I'm not going to be calling on anyone specifically. If you, I'm going to trust that when you have something to add, you will either chime in, raise a hand, shout out, because I might not be able to see you if I'm taking notes, or drop it in the chat. If you can, keeping camera on, mic unmuted, it makes it easier to kind of chime in. And again, this is really just kind of asking people when you're in these meetings to try and focus with us so that we can stay on task and move through the indicators. So that's the quick run through. We'll be looking at, again, theme 1 that has the following 4 subheaders, and then we will be moving on to theme 2, community health and well-being. So I'm going to stop sharing for a moment so I can switch over to the spreadsheet. But I will also just stop and pause, see if anyone has any questions, thoughts, anything before we get going. Everyone ready? All right, you can't wait to see these indicators. I like it. Okay. I am going to share. Okay. So here we are back in our spreadsheet. You see me looking off to the side here, it's just because I've got it pulled up on a larger screen. So, and Joanne or Liz, I might ask you if someone raises their hand, if you could kind of just let me know, just in case, again, if I'm staring at the notes here. All right,
Sure.
Can everyone see a lovely Google Doc spreadsheet here?
Yes.
No.
No.
Yes.
It's lovely.
Okay,
Wait,
great.
the Google
Yeah,
Doc?
maybe
Not seeing
lovely
the
was the
spreadsheet.
part. You
Not
don't see a spreadsheet?
I just
No,
see
we
the
see the
community and
website.
agriculture, the resiliency auditing tool. Like you're on the website, not on your spreadsheet.
Oh, okay. So it's not the lovely part that was the problem.
Nope, not lovely. But I like Bill's enthusiasm.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. How
That's the
about
kind of support we want, Bill. Everything's lovely.
yeah.
It is.
Now we see it.
It was a lovely title with lovely graphics. I thought that's where we were starting. So I was psyched. Let's roll.
Okay, now we should be in a spreadsheet.
Yeah. It's really hard
Okay.
to read. I don't know if you can blow it up a little bit, Rita.
Yeah, I'd say I can. Oops. How's that?
Better.
That's better.
That's better. Okay. So again, we are going to start on number 13 here, I'll read them out and then people can just start chiming in. All right, so the question is, in Plymouth County, we have policies, practices, or programs that incentivize or require preserving or adding new vegetative buffer zones in riparian areas. That's also some fairly technical language there. If anyone has any questions about, what is a riparian zone, basically next to a river, and vegetative buffer zones are typically, it's just plants planted near in a river area. And Molly, you might be able to even explain this even better, but it's just basically creating a bit of a planting that would protect rivers. Is that a good way to explain it, Molly?
Yeah, and
Um,
don't
it'd
be
be any
shy
water
about
body.
asking what each question means. We've been through this a lot with our cab and going, and every question takes it's more useful for us to spend a minute or two just discussing it so everybody feels like they're understanding it well, and then starting to
Mhm.
popcorn out ideas and, thoughts and stuff like that. So please don't sit silent if you're not quite understanding, because a lot of them you're like, huh, what's it asking?
It might take a few reads.
Yeah.
For any number of reasons, but yeah, definitely if there's a question about the question, just let us know.
Yeah, well, we have the benefit of the state acts relative to conservation that provides for setbacks from rivers and other bodies of water, and I
That's
think
the
that,
Wetlands Protection Act, I think that you're talking about, right?
yes, yeah, and uh, uh,
Is that state level or is that federal?
State
No.
level.
state level.
I just
yeah.
Mike,
put the Mass General Law number in the chat. Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40. And I think that includes the Rivers Protection Act. I just copied that from the Plymouth Conservation Commission site.
Yeah.
right. One of the.
So every community will have a conservation commission. Every municipality will have a conservation commission whose responsibility is to basically enforce what's in the
Yeah.
Wetlands Protection Act.
Adam,
And then in addition to, I was just going to add, in addition to, some municipalities have local bylaws for wetlands protection that are stricter than the state.
Yes, yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
but one of my experiences is that at times, local conservation commissions will in fact, they do have the power, with the agreement of the state to waive, setbacks.
Hmm.
And that it gets into a very sticky area that is not beneficial to the environment, but certainly beneficial in some instances to landholders.
Yeah.
The riparian zone in general across the state, except in certain called out areas, is 200 feet from the river. So it is, but I've seen things that have gone into well into the riparian zone that have been concerning. For example, allowances for septic system leach fields.
there's also provisions under the State Wetlands Protection Act for normal ag practices.
Yes,
Agriculture carried out adjacent to wetlands and wetland resource areas, riverbank.
yeah,
Just wanted to jump in and say urban rivers is 25 feet.
Right.
Yep.
That was the carve out. I was thinking specifically the Charles River.
Yeah.
and again, I think the concern that you've expressed is that sadly far too often in some communities, they really have encroached on these setbacks to allow development and or improvements to properties that I think endanger the health of the of the rivers and ponds. Halifax is a fine example. And I'm on the Central Plymouth County Water Commissioner and Chair, and they draw from Monpont Pond, and yeah, it seems every week there's somebody that lives around the pond that wants to encroach upon it and build up lawns and fire pits and those kinds of things, and porches or whatever. So,
So, the Wetlands Protection Act is, my understanding is typically held up. So like these variances come into play and it's the conservation commissions typically that are making those decisions.
Mhm. So if
Yeah,
so let's, mhm.
go ahead.
Go ahead, Howard.
Yeah, well, it may often result from people applying for a variance from certain zoning requirements, and then they oftentimes are referred back to the Conservation Commission for their determination first before the allowed use is allowed on the property. That's often the way things go, or it could go to maybe to a planning board who would require some decision on if that plan included encroachment in the wetlands, would require a decision in favor of that, let's say, or not in favor of it from the Conservation Commission.
And
So typically, I think the important thing to note is typically what you see in front of conservation commissions are new projects or additions or renovations that have to be permitted. But there's a
Yeah.
lot of activity that happens within the wetland protection areas that never comes before a conservation board that probably would be an enforcement issue. So
Yeah.
enforcement
Yes.
is kind of a constant struggle for most
Right.
municipalities. The rules are there for the most part, but the enforcement is a big challenge. And sorry, Rita, we just have a clarifying question. Rob wants to know what the column headings are for C, D, and E.
oh, yes, great question. I will zoom up. So so A are our indicators, C are policies, practice, programs, projects, people, organizations. So this is kind of our brainstorm around this indicator. What do we know about this indicator? What policies, what programs? D, sources of information. This is where we're kind of making notes more about organizations or like organization specific. So C is kind of more the open notes. D is where we're looking at kind of pulling out some of the specifics for further source of information. And then E is any other questions that come up or other notes that don't kind of fall within those two. So C is where you'll see me typing, just kind of adding in all of it. D again is where we can kind of pull out some of the specifics. Sorry, where'd 13 go? Okay, there we go. So yeah, that's the clarifying question. I was just writing enforcement there, especially of existing, basically of existing or non-new, because I'll clean up these notes, but non-new projects is difficult to enforce. So, and just getting back to sort of the specifics of the question. So there's a state policy, and then municipalities have the ability to be stricter. Joanne, you mentioned that the two questions I have are, do we have a list of municipalities with stricter policies?
Yeah, we could probably get that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and then and then my other question is there any kind of map of variances? As in, if we know there's a 200-foot buffer around rivers or 20-foot for urban rivers, is there any kind of map to show where that's been lessened?
No. you'd have to go to each municipality and request their variances that they've made and kind of start from scratch putting it together.
Okay. Um,
A monumental task.
Yeah, it'd be huge.
mhm.
And the histories. The question is whether you can get them to be more stringent, either with local bylaws. The ag exemption has often been used in our area because there's been so much cranberry growing. So it's really it becomes a cultural thing, I think, with the Conservation Commission. They have to hold the line. The problem is, of course, that people can appeal to DEP. I think I'm right in that, Bill, am I not?
Yeah, you get a superseding order of conditions, yeah.
We got a superseding order of conditions, and there goes the farm. And our friends at DEP, I think I have a recent example right up the street from me, and we allow retreat lots in our community. And as land gets tighter, buildable land and Form A land, other land, Form A would be simple frontage lots that don't require any further approval. They're a matter of right. People are reaching for the high stands of pine trees, a quarter of a mile in the woods, because the pine trees probably indicate a place where it will perk and you can put a subsurface sewage system in, and you don't have to deal with those issues. So we're seeing these long driveways that they then fill in with gravel so they can drive in, and it's questionable whether the fire truck could ever get in there to reach these buildable sites. So it's going to continue to encroach on upland, but remote upland, only access through. And this particular site, I think is operating on an order from DEP. And
Interesting.
so
So it sounds like there's state level policy. Are there any organizations or programs that are incentivizing vegetative buffer zones or talking about it to anyone, or is it more driven by state policy and enforcement?
Again, I looked at that. I think you'd probably need a board of a conservation approval to plant anything in those areas, wouldn't you, Bill?
Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah, because they would want to make sure that on your plant list, nothing there is considered invasive.
Yeah. I think you're allowed to remove invasives, right? But that's it.
Yeah,
With permission of the
With
Conservation Commission.
yeah.
Oh, even invasives. Okay.
Yes. I think that part of the question is there is the Mass Association of Conservation Commissions,
Yep.
MACC, located in Belmont, and they do a very good job of their programs trying to educate conservation commissioners who are citizens, some with greater background, some with no background in conservation. And I only wish that their courses were more widely available to the general public and more widely advertised, but they are very much focused on making sure that commissioners are well qualified and knowledgeable with regard to the work that comes before them.
Yeah, MACC is a great resource, Hampton, absolutely. And there's other organizations out there too that are really, kind of pushing this. Mass Audubon is a great resource, and even Save the Bay in Rhode Island. They have some great stream buffer standards that they've put in play in their communities and even some of the communities up here in southeastern Massachusetts, along the lower Taunton River. So,
Sorry, Bill, you said to save the day, and what was the one before?
oh, Mass Audubon.
Oh, yeah.
And it's Save the Bay,
Oh,
Narragansett
save
Bay.
the-
Yeah, save that. Well, they do save the day sometimes, but it's save
Yeah.
the bay.
Save the Bay, perfect. And Mass Audubon. Okay. Great.
The Land
Any,
and Water Coalition in Plymouth County. We actively take action, file lawsuits or appeals. And I think we should mention that anybody can appeal, Bill, the decision of a conservation commission, but is that appeal to DEP typically?
Yeah.
And-
Right,
and-
Grant process maybe could be exploring like the commonalities and themes of priorities in all of your local community food assessments. I know many folks here have been able to complete one in the past couple of years. So I mean, that could be
Yeah.
Rachel, I missed the first part of your comment there. What was that?
Sounds like she's breaking up.
Hmm. I can listen back to the recording. Also, Howard, I think you mentioned another organization that has was there an organization that has brought lawsuits, perhaps? Oh, and you're on mute.
Community Land and Water Coalition.
Thank you. Okay.
In terms of funding, Rita, the SNAP program and NBP provide funds to protect those areas.
They're so much better.
Yeah.
And there's CZM also.
You want to be treated. Yeah.
Oh, MVP. Yeah.
Right. And NBEP, National Bay Estuary Program. I mean, MVP probably does it also, but they're not like specific to water. So SNAP.
All right. Yeah, you might have to spell those out. I'm not actually familiar with those. So NBEP,
Yeah.
CZM is the Coastal Zone Management. Yeah.
Yeah, and then SNAP, which is the Southeast New England, what's it called? Sorry, I'm forgetting actually what the acronym
Yeah.
stands for.
We just did a grant.
I think it's Southeast New England Environment Program.
Environmental finance.
Anyway, we can send you the link, Rita.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that the one that we recently applied to?
But World
Through
World-
the EPA, but it's a regional, it's for the Southeast. Yeah, for our area.
Yeah.
They behaved themselves yesterday and today. Oh, that's good.
Okay. Um,
For whining.
great. Anything else on number 13 that anyone knows about?
You haven't come to Quilton. Oh, yeah. He's on Quilton Day.
Okay, number 14. Does anyone know of any policies, practices, or programs that support the use of pond or river fencing to prevent livestock damage?
That's probably the NRCS, I'm guessing. I don't know if others do it.
Yeah, NRCS is the only one I know of. And for those who might not know, NRCS is Natural Resource Conservation Support. I just forgot the S. Karen, do you know? But they are a federal program, part of the USDA, and they work with farmers, supporting them on some of the conservation measures.
Services. Yes.
Services, yeah.
And I know they went back and forth on fencing, but I'm pretty sure if it to protect the waterways, they're still funding that unless anyone else has more updated info on that.
No, and so at least in the Bristol County conversations, NRCS was the only one that we had heard of that is actively doing that.
Does anybody know of any health departments that take that on? I know in Dartmouth, sometimes they get involved in that a little bit. I've seen that happen in our region with the farms.
Yeah, that would make sense. Okay,
I don't think
Right.
Plymouth County has any dairy farms left operating, so, you know, in terms of large scale herds.
We do have a few, Howard,
Yeah,
like Hornstra Farms in
yeah,
Norwell.
but do they have
But-
animals there now, Joanne?
Sorry, what?
Do they have animals at their farm in Norwell?
They do. Yeah, they do. They have quite a few.
And you have Lowlands, right? Lowlands Farm? I think that's in your territory.
Yeah.
I don't-
There's quite a few. There's probably a handful.
Yeah,
Mhm.
But I've never heard of any Board of Health getting involved in any of that in our
No.
region.
O'Neill Farm, I don't think, I don't know how active they are anymore, but, they're certainly not on a river there.
What about Easton? Does Plymouth cover Easton? I always get confused, so don't shoot me.
It does. No, so it's not in the county, but they're in the Old Colony region, so they are part of this project.
Okay, because I know
Yeah.
that Langwater Farm, has water, like river or lake or something, or that would
Mhm.
be a good place to drill a little deeper into.
Yeah, they don't have any livestock at Langwater Farm.
Okay,
There is the only livestock is more. It's not really for farming purposes, but
Mhm.
the Natural Resources Trust of Easton has, I think, a couple of cows, a couple of sheep. It's more of an educational facility.
At the town.
I'm just kind of making that note.
And there are animals at Patuxent too, so.
Yeah, there are a few pig
Um,
farmers, I think, as
Yeah,
well in our
there's
region, but
large-
we'll have to dig into. We'll have to dig into it more.
And just a note as well, in Bristol County, Buzzards Bay Coalition is somewhat involved. They don't enforce or implement this. They work with NRCS and sort of use NRCS recommendations, but they're an organization in Bristol County that are looking at protecting ponds and rivers and waterways from livestock runoff. So I don't know if that I don't know enough. I know the Wildlands Trust has come up a bit. I don't know if Buzzards Bay does any work in Plymouth. I don't think so. But yeah, so there might be an organization similar though that might be paying attention to it a bit.
Yeah, I think in Bristol, you probably ran the Westport River Watershed Alliance and the Westport Board of Health. They're really active in stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
I mean, they'd be
I
good.
mean, I think that the amount of livestock farming in Bristol County
Yeah.
definitely made it more very relevant. So, that might just be part of it. Okay, that will be one that we will follow up on, see if there's anything else we can dig up. But we'll move on to 15. Are there any policies, practices, or programs that facilitate the adoption of agroforestry practices, including those that integrate the management of forested lands with livestock and crop production? So is there any incentivization for agroforestry in Plymouth County?
There's interest from a couple of our communities. I know Duxbury has had some conversations around agroforestry, but I don't think there's anything actually happening.
If anything, the opposite is happening, under the guise of cranberry development. We're destroying the rare pine forests in Plymouth at alarming rates. So-
So she's trying out different things.
And unfortunately, I'll carry on from what Howard just said. If cranberry farmers can't make a profit growing cranberries, my experience is that they'll grow homes. The cranberry farmers have often had large tracts of upland property that are ripe for, particularly the larger owners, ripe for residential development. And we've seen that on the south end, certainly on the south end of the county. and then over on into Bristol County, where
I would say before they do that, Hampton, they usually strip all the gravel off it, which is the filter material for the sole source Plymouth Carter aquifer. And
I,
and actually, the AD Makepeace is the largest landowner now in our area and probably runs the largest gravel and materials processing facility out of Wareham and Carver. So it's a very serious problem in Plymouth County. And we're losing, as I say, globally there, pine barrens to this practice, often done under the guise of building another unprofitable cranberry bog or a reservoir for a cranberry bog. They tuck in under some agricultural exemption in order to undertake this destruction.
Mhm. So from that, so looking back at the question there, there definitely sounds like there's not a whole lot of attention being paid to agroforestry and the potential for
No.
agroforestry, whether it's with existing farms, especially cranberry bogs, or in any other aspect. Maybe a little bit of interest, Joanne, you were saying, but really nothing active here.
There are some town
so-
forests that have been designated, like I know Abington has a town forest, but again, there's no agroforestry happening really.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, I think
Well,
that's
the-
where you'd really have to look is which towns have forestry management plans and what are the elements of the forestry management plan and how recently were they done?
Yeah.
The right, and I mean the NRCS I think has ag forestry as a BMP, and then the MDAR like climate smart agriculture program will fund it, but right, whether it's happening or not, I guess is like different question.
right,
Sorry, interrupt you, Bill. My dog was barking and I couldn't hear.
right.
I
One of-
don't know, Rita, if we'd want to put what we're doing with Frogfoot Farm, it is on Plymouth land. And it's not agroforestry, but the agroecology of working, and regenerative farming practices on that 6 acres of AD Makepeace land that's surrounded by bogs that are in various states of going back to, being decommissioned and going back to their natural habitat. I don't know if that's worth putting in this section.
Yeah, that's a good point, Liz. And I know Deeza down around the Bend Farm, again, out of the county, but it's an example.
Yeah.
They have an agroforestry practices
Yeah.
plan down there, and they share it willingly with other people. I had them come up to Bridgewater State for a
Mhm.
regional talk on when we're doing the regional water plan. And a lot of people were really impressed with the idea of agroforestry. Now, I don't think people, rushed out to implement it or even pass regulations or talk about policies, but the interest was there, and there are people who are, practicing it and have obviously working farms, practitioners, things that they can share information, examples. So
I
Hampton,
would
I think,
say,
oh yeah, I saw Hampton's hand up there, so I might give him a chance. I think I saw your hand up.
Excuse the phone ringing in the background. What I was going to simply say is that it's often the case that many of the tracts of uplands that where the agricultural land would be placed into Chapter 61 for tax purposes, tax mitigation purposes. The
Mhm.
uplands would often be either incorporated in that if they're immediately adjacent to, for example, cranberry bogs, or if they were detached, would be placed into Chapter 61A, which is the equivalent forestry. So if you wanted to get a quick assessment of what is in forestry, you might take a look at all of the lands in all of the towns across the state. And it's not yet in Mass GIS, but I've been poking and prodding the Mass GIS folks to add that as a field that would be that you could bring up on some of the maps across the entire state to see which land is in agriculture, forestry, and recreation, which is 61B.
Mhm.
And that would give I think, a better sense amongst the tools that we do have of just exactly what land use is being made. And I'll just say, I've learned a hell of a lot as chair of the Land Use and Acquisition Committee in Plymouth.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's an excellent suggestion. And maybe if you can't get the state to do it, maybe we could do something collaboratively with Bridgewater.
Each municipality does do that as part of their open space and recreation plans. So they would at minimum be listed in those
You know,
plans.
I don't recall it, but they may, Joanne. Obviously, the assessors have a list of chapter lands, as I had suggested at our last
Right.
meeting. And getting those lists and the and the detail behind those. I know a lot of land in Plimpton and some associated with Granbury's, others with private owners are in forestry. Another great resources would be people who do those assessments, forestry plans. There are only a couple of those people. I know one of them who's currently retired, but I'm sure who could give me a data dump as to all the projects he did in Plymouth County that where forestry land was set aside.
I was gonna call Donnie, but I didn't.
Right. One of the challenges, and I'm sure Howard's aware of it, is that the land that, for example, is placed in 61B can be anything from golf courses to swimming facilities to open recreational space, essentially untouched land. But in many instances, there is, within a particular parcel, there is no need to delineate the boundaries of what is in 61B. This is a little far afield, but you can have some land that is used in agricultural, for example, 61, that is ancillary facilities that's still classified as 61, and actual farmland, whether it's so you've got barns mixed in with and repair facilities and so on, storage facilities that are mixed in with the ag land, the actual production land.
Mhm. So I think 61A and B have come up a couple times in this theme. It sounds like that's kind of one of the main tools here that is sort of protecting state level, or no, sorry, 61A is state, but then it's also town by town.
Yeah, you
That
have,
it's protecting forest
yeah,
potentially, although there's some
Yep.
debate as to how well it's protecting it.
you have to know too, though, that under 61, people can take their land out of
Hmm.
chapter.
Yeah.
In which case they pay, I think it's a 6 or 7 year look back, rollback tax.
Yeah.
And, so unless the land is being transferred to something that would, a more restrictive, use like, conservation land, then people, this happens all the time.
Yeah.
I think the plans are what, 10 years, Bill, or, I've forgotten how long.
Yeah, forestry plans are 10 years, yeah.
10 years, yeah.
Mhm. Okay.
Right, and
All
you
right. Well, we'll dig deeper into that one and see what maps we can pull up. And Joanne, I think
Yeah, because
you know,
obviously
where
trying to prevent those conversions,
Mhm.
especially as it relates to land that is currently in agriculture,
Mhm.
is I think critical to this effort.
Yeah.
Losing
Definitely.
agricultural land rapidly in the region, and some of it is locked up in 61, and
Mhm.
but there is a way out of 61.
Yeah.
And if we can find ways to put it into conservation, that would be great.
All right. I'm going to bold that one is to come back to. Because I think we doesn't look like we have a whole lot of practices or programs, but definitely seems fairly relevant to what's going on
Yes, it is.
within Plymouth County still. Okay, I am going to jump to 16, which just giving a little bit of background. So are there policies, practices, or programs that prohibit or strictly monitor concentrated animal feeding operations? This is one that in our Bristol County carrot, we had some differing opinions as to whether any of these, they call them CAFOs for short, exist in Massachusetts at all. If you haven't
We
heard of
don't-
one,
Yeah, we definitely don't have any in Plymouth County.
okay.
The ones that we do have would be more rotational grazing, that sort of thing.
I was gonna say the only force feeding facilities are in my house, so.
There you go. Yeah, this one it doesn't I think it did, Bristol County, Westport, there's definitely some conversation, but it doesn't always apply, I think, in parts of Massachusetts. So
Where do they draw the line on, I know that, I know a piggery, farm in Plymouth where they collect, garbage from institutions, and would that constitute a concentrated animal feeding operation?
No, these are
Yeah.
more like what you kind of see in the news where they don't have any access to the outside and they're pretty
Factory
much in a, like
farms.
factory farming, very small
Yeah,
pen,
Yeah,
that sort of thing.
yeah.
And it's defined
feedlots,
by,
yes,
I believe,
feedlots,
sorry, go ahead, Howard.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Defined by the EPA, and there is a threshold of number of animals, and there was an issue in Westport, so it is possible to have that density of animals on a piece of property. This was years ago. And there is some conversation within some of the farmers that we spoke to that, farmers are aware of that threshold and might work to be under it. And the other piece is that they're not in Massachusetts, they're not, you can have them, but once you're over a certain threshold, the EPA then enforces, becomes the enforcer. So it discourages, it disincentivizes a lot of farmers in our area, at least, to partake in CAFOs. But yeah, keep your ears out if you hear of anything. Okay, 17, we have policies, practices, or programs that encourage commercial fishers or seafood producers to manage and harvest fish and seafood in accordance with recognized indicators or standards of environmental sustainability.
The one that comes to mind here, and I think it depends on your perspective if this is a pro or a con, but shell fishing, for example, is typically by permit only. So on the one hand, it probably protects species from being over harvested, but on the other hand, probably also dampens potential for commercial harvesting.
Mm. Do you have commercial, or I guess I'm thinking out in Nantucket, you can get a little individual for scalloping. You get your individual permit and then you can be a commercial scalloper as well.
There is a similar sort of setup for lobstering I know of. You're entitled to, I believe it's 8 personal lobsters, and then it's a different category for commercial fishing.
Okay. And that is town by town?
I believe it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I know in Duxbury, the shellfishing thing came up in a open space plan discussion we recently had.
And typically with clamming, there are set limits on size and quantity.
And is that defined by the state or is that defined by the town?
I would say by the community, yeah.
I know at least for lobsters, I believe that's the state that sets the size limit.
So are you lobstering on the side, John?
In a former life, I was a lobster fisherman.
Really?
And of course, there are lots of commercial oyster farms in Duxbury and Plymouth now.
Mhm.
I don't know how they're regulated.
John, I feel like a good focus group would be some of our,
Yeah, we have pretty strong connection, I think, to some of our aquaculturalists in the
Mhm.
region. So we can definitely do one with, there's a variety of them. There's some folks doing interesting things with
Yeah.
what is it? Not kelp. It's not kelp, it's seaweed.
Yeah.
Okay, any other notes on 17? Okay, I'm gonna move on to, these are our last few for this theme. So it's focusing on food production and distribution. So in Plymouth County, are there any policies, practices, programs that promote the use of renewable energy sources or electric vehicles in food transport? I'm gonna throw in, I think, Karen, go ahead, yeah.
The MDAR grants, one of them is specifically focused on energy. I'm just forgetting the name of it, but I think
Yeah, it's the agricultural energy efficiency grants.
there
Karen.
you go. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you, Bill.
I was gonna say, no, not any of the other MDAR grants, FSIG or Climate Smart.
Climate Smart is like a combination of their other programs. They kind of like bundled it. But there's different, like legislative like authorities to each one and different funding cycles. But it's anyway, it's sort of, but yeah, they had like 3 older grants that they sort of bundled for this Climate Smart one, but they still exist separately. Anyway, I don't remember all the details on that, but
Cool, okay.
Yeah.
And any organizations, does anyone know of any organizations in Plymouth County that are just doing it? Anyone heard or seen any action around here? No? Okay. 19. Are there policies, practices, or programs in Plymouth County that promote the use of renewable energy sources for on-farm energy production?
So I don't know if this fits entirely within this, but there are cranberry bogs that are trying to install solar, not for use necessarily on their farm, but just to sell back to the grid. And it's generally a concern in a region as opposed to a good thing. The state's trying to discourage agricultural land from being used for renewable energy.
Yeah.
Really 2 programs there, one where the bog no longer exists and the solar takes. We have also people that want their cake and eat it too, so they're actually they're trying to combine elevated solar on the bogs and be able to harvest the berries. And
Mhm.
I call it, I'll keep my mouth shut.
No, no, go ahead, Howard.
It's just crazy, frankly.
Oh.
And I would, the elephant in the room here, I think, is that southeastern Mass, under the current regime, has the potential to simply blow up. I think if the cranberry industry continues to collapse, you're going to see a lot of more and more bogs. Plimpton had lots of cranberry bogs, and I'd say that we have more solar cranberry, non-productive cranberry sites now than we have bogs producing cranberries. So the land is rapidly disappearing to this use, and we have the potential because of the number of bogs for that industry to disappear, frankly, and to go to it be covered with solar.
Yeah, I think that some of these conversations, I think this is where the carrot is hopefully going to sort of highlight the opportunity for policy. I mean, I think a lot of what has been driving the work that we're doing at the Marion Institute is knowing that the changing of hands of farmland is imminent, as either farmers are getting closer to retirement or agriculture, whatever they're farming may not be as economically viable. And so I think that's why, really getting at where's the disconnect between food production and climate and, policy. So we're hoping that we're capturing some of that in here.
Yeah, I don't know that the state is discouraging ag land. I think they may say that, but my observation certainly in Plymouth County is that, and in my town, it's cranberry bogs. If they aren't doing that, then they're taking down forest and putting the stuff up. So, and I call it stuff. Call it foolishness, actually. But I'll leave it at that.
I'd say it'll come up a few more times in here. So,
I think that's where we're headed, if frankly, unless, and then that raises the question: what other viable use is there for cranberry bogs? You have now the old cranberry bogs that were actually destroyed wetlands to create them. And you have the new cranberry bogs, those that have been built in the last 10 or 15 years, where the state said you're not going to take wetlands anymore and convert them to bogs. You're going to build them in uplands, essentially. So what happens with, can any of them be reconstituted into other agricultural uses? Or will they all go to solar fields?
Yeah, I think it's it's definitely a hot topic in Plymouth County for sure. So all right, I'm gonna jump over to 20, which is are there policies, practices, or programs that restrict the types or amounts of fertilizers that may be used on commercial farmland? And I'll lump this in together, because if I have to say that when this indicator comes up and we've got farmers on, they get upset about that word.
Yeah, we don't like regulate that in Massachusetts, like which I think farmers would say is a good thing. And and as far as I know, there's no like nutrient management program outside of the NRCS, but if your land is under like conservation restriction, or if you have other types of protections, or if you're involved with NRCS, then they would have a nutrient management plan. But yeah, regulating that is definitely not something people are going to get excited about.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, Karen, they do have the fertilizer management, fertilizer registration.
Okay.
Right.
What's that? How does that work?
That's through MDR, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
And
I know
it's
that
like,
You
but
have
it's
to be
optional, right?
licensed
It's like,
that
yeah, go ahead.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's report based on the amount you're gonna use and what product you're gonna use. You have to send in, label information, the whole bit. You actually registered through a portal,
Yeah.
which,
And I think,
Yeah,
Bill,
come-
that there are best practices within the cranberry industry too that
right.
promulgated, and whether they're controlled in any way, I don't know, but there are best practices. And they'll all tell you that they use,
Yeah, and that's where they start differentiating in there too, Howard, because they have a category for specialty products that are basically non-agricultural, defined as non-agricultural. So, I don't know, but
Yeah,
it's there, I think.
this comes home to me. There are about 10 houses in Plimpton that just below me here that were all contaminated by the Middleborough dump when they dumped some of the cranberry hulks in the Middleborough dump, and they were covered with some kind of stuff that eventually leaked into the water table and into the wells. Plimpton is all on private wells, so Middleborough had to provide water to those homes. But I don't know of any regulation other than
Would anyone put, this didn't come up in Mercer County, but I was just thinking if you're going to be certified organic, then you would be restricted, and that would be NOFA? Or that would be the broader?
I think those are voluntary. If you do go that or organic, then you're certainly restricted, and it, and it may limit particularly people who have been using fertilizers and pesticides. It takes a while for their land to clean up before it could be organic again.
Mm-hmm. I think it's 3 years, maybe 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hampton?
One of the challenges with the various organic certifications is that if you don't treat your plants, for example, directly, but you can use on your property, for example, in cranberry algicides in the ponds and the ditches. You can use rodenticides. You can use a range of other on the property, but not directly impacting. So you've got spillover that is generally in support of agricultural uses, but not disqualifying for organic agriculture.
And what I'm seeing is tremendous eutrophication of some of the smaller rivers in the area as a result of all of that, both toxic stuff and fertilizers.
Right. We've had any number of instances. I think even if you go out onto the Cape and in Plymouth, ponds that are adjacent to bogs or even abandoned bogs will have a higher frequency, for example, of cyano blooms. And that tends to abate over the course of years and decades as the bogs age out and the water transports the substances, the fertilizer residue and so on into the aquifer and then onward out to the bay.
Are there organizations that actually sort of track that? Or is Plymouth County, is anyone in the county sort of tracking or confirming any connection between eutrophication and farming, any kind of farming.
Not that I'm aware of.
Not that I'm aware of,
specifically.
but
Yeah,
There is one practice, I think that, and I'm not that close to it, but it seems that in recent years, in building new bogs, the growers were required to provide some type of holding pond that the waters that were used to, let's say, harvest the crop were then held in a retaining pond and allowed to maybe settle out or nutrify or whatever some of the dangerous things before the water was released
Mhm.
into a local river or stream. And that may be a state policy. I'm not aware, but it seems to me, I remember when I was in Chicago for a couple of years and moved away temporarily to set a factory up out there. And when I came back, some guy was rebuilding a dam that had been blown up in the 40s on the Winnetoxet River. And I think it was because the cranberry grower was required to, with the consent of, I guess, the Board of Selectmen, so that he could have a retaining pond
Mhm.
before he released the water from his bogs.
there
Hmm.
are some water quality monitoring programs, some more active than others, like the Taunton River Watershed,
Yeah.
the Taunton River Stewardship. Taunton River Watershed, come on, Bill, help me out. Taunton River Watershed, it's not association, it's something else. Is it?
Coalition?
Council or the plan?
Council.
The council, yeah, there's the council and then there's the plan, right? Two different.
I always get very confused. What was I gonna say? So they do water quality monitoring. It's mostly in connection though to impacts from sewer treatment plants.
Yeah.
So it's not specific really to farming. And then similarly, I believe it was the state that was doing some monitoring of Duxbury Bay. I don't know if that's still an active program, but they that was, I think, more to do with household septic issues and the need to sewer as opposed to farm runoff. But then there's also in our region multiple water bodies, surface water bodies that have been identified as having poor water quality, at least in part to agricultural practices. So for example, Monpont Pond will have what they call a TMDL, which is like a report on water quality, why it's as poor as it is, and steps that could be taken to fix it.
Yeah, we Central Plymouth County Water District has for the last several years monitored Silver Lake water, which gets recharged by Monpont Pond and was to be recharged by ponds that have been taken offline because they're too polluted to take water from anymore. So, and I would guess that Brockton must be actively monitoring reservoirs for water quality.
All right, now the next one asks about the same type of restriction for fertilizers, except for public or residential properties.
Rita, there's something in the regulations that I mentioned before. If you scroll back up, it says that there should be MDR. I was talking about, MDR. Well, it says NRCS, but MDR does have plant nutrient regulations. And I think, if I remember correctly, it's for agricultural and non-agricultural land. And it had been kicking around since, I don't know, maybe 2012, but I think they promulgated amended regulations in 2018.
Are they suggested, Bill, or are they law?
No, in fact, it's law. And I think they have, if I'm not mistaken, MDR has a fact sheet on that stuff, or
Yeah.
NRCS. I think it's MDR. I'm not sure. You know what? While I'm thinking about it, maybe I'll look. Hang on a second.
All right, well, I noted that. I gotta come back to you to see if we get some clarification on that.
Yeah,
Are
it's
there any
MDR.
It's MDR. Okay.
It is MDR. Yeah, they have a fact sheet on the plant nutrient regulations for agricultural, non-agricultural applications.
Hmm.
And it was 2018. The first one was finally promulgated in 2015, and they amended it in 2018. It says, because I remember we actually had discussions in the county about this when we formed agricultural commissions, Rita.
Mm-hmm.
People wanted to be really up on that, and some people were then really concerned even about people dumping lime, excessive amounts of lime on property. So,
Huh.
Yeah.
If you have a link that you could share, maybe in the chat, that would be great. And then I can grab it. But if not, I can look that up too.
okay.
I think in terms of education, if we look at, Monpont Pond came up, you know,
Which pond was that, Howard?
well, Monpont,
Okay.
you know, is noted for its cyanobacteria blooms. The source of that is probably most likely due to septic systems and cranberry use, because the adjacent bogs, I think their permit allows them to dump the water back into the pond, and so I think in terms of an educational portion of this work should be to, if those guidelines are available, Bill, then that they're out in front of the conservation commissions and people who deal with the land around the ponds, boards of health.
And are there any organizations that are spearheading any kind of work around fertilizers and public or residential properties?
Yeah, there's quite a few of them. So we've got every watershed association pretty much does something for education around this. So we've got 3, 4 of them, I think, in our region, at least the big ones, and there are smaller ones as well. A lot of the towns, either through their conservation commission or their open space plan, or their open space committee, will also often do education around this.
Yeah, so the Plymouth Open Space Committee is doing some outreach right now. We just finalized like a bifold brochure. So it's through the Open Space Committee and Sustainable Plymouth. And we're reaching out to the watershed associations too, because Plymouth has a lot of watershed associations.
What?
There are some like drinking water coalitions as well that are doing education around this too. I know Duxbury has like a citizen, forget what they're called, like a citizen clean drinking water coalition or something. There are not necessarily fertilizer related, but at least in terms of rodenticide, there's like a local group in Easton of residents that are trying to make some changes around that. So there's quite a few. We can send you what we know in terms of lists.
I would say that in my 50 years or more around this area, the increase in the number of companies that are willing to come out and spread, take care of your mosquitoes and your deer and your lawn all in one treatment has expanded tremendously. There's a new one right on Route 58 just over the Carver line. There must be 20 or 30 trucks that leave there every morning with a load of stuff to be dumped on people's lawns. So it all gets into the water table, and
I'm curious, Rita, why the focus on fertilizers here and why they don't include pesticides as part of the indicator question.
Yeah,
or,
good
or septic systems.
Yeah, or
Mhm.
septic.
Well,
Yeah.
because I think septic systems probably, I think this is more focusing on agriculture.
Yeah.
So, and nutrient sounds like, I mean, I think this is really, that's a good question for the developers. I think
Yeah. I mean,
nutrient.
nutrient loading, definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I think that the question around the pesticides, I mean, I think, I don't know. I think that's a good question. It feels like nutrient loading is a more typical question, and I think that's one of those gets contentious. Is it septic? Is it agriculture in towns where
Mm.
there's both? Looking, natural resource management, use, and conservation. I guess the question I have is testing for pesticide residue common and sort of easily accessible for municipalities? Like, I feel like nutrient loading is kind of the,
No, never.
No,
I would say neither are really in the ballpark of municipalities. I mean, very few will do it unless they're, unless there's some kind of public motivation to do it or the state steps in.
Or they have an incident.
Yeah, exactly, like a spill or something.
yeah,
I mean, there
maybe,
are policies, there are like policies and practices in place to try and minimize storage issues. So like, for example, each municipality usually has like aquifer protection, different zones, a zone 1 and a zone 2. And in zone 1, which is typically anyways owned by a municipality, you wouldn't be storing any fertilizers or pesticides or things like that.
Mhm.
But in zone 2, which is usually private, mostly residential land, but commercial industrial too, there are rules around how you would keep it if you do store it on site, certain protections that are in place, and those things would be checked by a planning board usually, to make sure that accidents, don't happen. But
In a permitting situation.
yeah. Yeah, Rita, I was wondering if it came up in Bristol County discussions about integrated pest management, because if you have farm plans, you have IPM plans that go along with that. And the other thing that may really kind of drive the bus here is when you look at the 303D list of impaired waters, what's the driving factor in streams that kick off that list? I mean, it's usually when you look at it's nutrients.
mm,
So, but I mean, pesticides, they have to be in the mix, and that's why you need IPM on, farms.
Mhm.
mm.
A lot
Well,
of
and
the,
so I guess
Yeah.
the question I have is when they're looking at impaired waters, are they also looking at
They
things
sh-
like pesticide residue?
they should be looking at everything. Yeah, when they do impaired waters, that's what it's.
And the rising concern there is PFAS and PFOS.
Yeah.
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 I mean, it's a very long list of what they can look for, so they don't look for everything,
Everything.
but like the main ones typically are checked out.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
And
Yeah, that's a good question.
I know of practices in the past where the Department of Agriculture, in terms of fertilizer, was allowing up to, I think, 3 to 5 tons of the acre of night soil to be spread on agricultural land. And that now is rearing its ugly head because that's a concentrator of PFAS and PFOS.
Mm,
Yeah. That is going to be an overriding issue for Plymouth and Bristol and southeastern Massachusetts is the
and I think that's a good point. I mean, this is another thing that the carrot is a work in progress, and that additional indicators, especially around things like PFAS, which are emerging,
Yeah.
we might want to add a question about pesticides. So we'll keep note of that as well. But I think you're right on the PFAS that's emerging.
Yes.
So I'm going to pause this there. We finished a theme.
Yeah.
Really
Good.
excited. Thank you, everyone. I just want to note that, we finished that one theme and we won't move on to theme 2 today. We've got 5 minutes here. But I do want to thank everyone again for joining in, and that's a lot of great information. And, what we're going to be doing now too is kind of digesting this information, cleaning up the notes, pulling some of these bits out, and we'll be coming back to people on the community advisory board, there's obviously several of you that have some very deep knowledge around this, as well as figuring out who else do we need to talk to kind of confirm or to understand what's going on. And I also, if anything comes up before the next month that comes to mind, definitely be in touch with us. But before we wrap up, and I'll hand it over to Joanne if you want to add anything there. But does anyone have any questions or further comments about theme 1?
Oh,
I'm gonna just the teaser for theme 2, community health and well-being. It's gonna be very exciting. The first theme is really based around farmland, so there'll be a significant shift as we move to theme 2. So, and I just want to call out a couple of the people that showed up for the first time. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
I would like to make one more comment in terms of what's going on with farmland. George Hasiotis is one of the sons of one of the Hasiotis Cumberland Farms family. He is out buying up tremendous quantities of cranberry bogs and open space. And so he's in the thousands of acres. Okay. So he's somebody that we would maybe want to wrestle to the ground at some point in time to see what he loves farming. And he's activating bogs, and Hasiotis is the name, you know.
I'm sure I did not spell that correctly, but I'll come back to you, Howard.
Howard, are you able to provide an introduction to him?
I am. I know of him. I would have to share, and I would with him, and I've had a love-hate relationship, or more hate with what I've observed of Cumberland's activities. I would say, you know, we talked about large-scale feedlots. Certainly, the Cumberland Activity Bill in Bridgewater was a fine example of that, and it by extension included lands in surrounding towns. Yeah, I'd have to think on that. There's one other person that I have, Joanne. I have a list of farmers and the rest that I think can that I've spoken to that are willing to talk to us.
That's great, Howard.
Is a good friend of his as well. I have another associate that's very familiar with him. I've had several conversations, but it's always been guarded on my part because of what I have witnessed in terms of past practices of Cumberland Farms.
That's great. I think we can reconnect about that, Howard, separately and figure out how best to engage those folks with Rita and whatnot.
He is another elephant in the room that I think in terms of acreage that we need to talk to. Thousands of acres.
Great. So we'll note that. And again, I think when it comes to determining and setting up some focus groups, I think definitely also with some farmers is going to be key. So great. Thank you.
I just want to add before we I just want to add before we close off, I think one of the things that we're always looking to do as we go through this project is see if there's anything that we can do better in our meetings and processes. So if you guys have any first suggestions, we did send out the carrot tool ahead of time so folks could see the indicators before the meeting if they wanted to. But if there's anything else that would be helpful in helping you guys participate in the meetings at all, please let us know, and we're happy to work with you on that.
I would think with some of the topics, whether people feel they need to join or not, having an overview, I think is helpful, Joanne. You know, whether people plug in and plug out of this process, and should we think that way? I don't know.
Okay, sounds good.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, we will make sure that, yeah, I think, people can get a glance, look ahead at the
Yes.
indicators that we're going through. But also use it as a resource if anything does come to mind, I'd say as well. So Joanne, we can figure that out. Okay. Great. With that, anyone else? Good to go. Have a great Labor Day weekend.
Yeah.
Everyone get some time off and eat some local food.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Bye, thank you.